It will do this by expanding and clarifying the existing abandoned boat law to include boats that are moored and anchored in state waters. Boats tied to moorings will have to have the permission of the owner or the person in control of the mooring apparatus, such as a mooring pole. The existing law is pretty good at addressing issues at marinas and public and private property. So this is really focused on these moorings that are an ongoing problem. And I don't know if you can see the picture behind me, but that's Good Hands Creek. There's 10 different boats on various mooring poles. You can see 3 of them on one pole. And so, you know, it's an ongoing challenge. Folks end up with a boat, really can't afford a marina or even put in their own mooring. So then they get left abandoned. So we're often stuck with it. We appreciate DNR's help once it becomes really problematic and it may break loose or other things or sink. We're trying to head that off a little sooner in the game. You know, we're not targeting the watermen. They're not a problem. They are a long tradition of finding safe harbor and using these poles. This is more focused on the recreational boat that gets abandoned there. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate a favorable recommendation on this HB 1260.
Thank you. We seem to have a question for some reason from Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, Delegate Ahrens, I know last year you spent a lot of time working on this bill. We've actually been working on this for several years. Baltimore County's got a very serious problem with this as well. I thought the deal was worked out, but apparently, did you talk to them this year?
I'm sorry, did I what?
Did you talk to DNR this year?
Yes, we had, prior to session, before we put the bill in, we had a meeting, we discussed it. We were supposed to get some information back and some answers. Unfortunately, through other circumstances, that didn't happen. I've been asking for the information, but again, circumstances are circumstances, and we just haven't got the data.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little story about what happened down in Rock Hall this summer. It's a person, it was a nice boat, a Chris Craft fiberglass boat, about 36 feet, a nice boat. It was tied up at the county pier and was in very good condition. And something happened with the owner. I don't know what happened legally, but he got detained for a while, and so they moved his boat a couple times. And it sat there from July until December, when it eventually sunk right there at the bulkhead. DNR came down at one point a couple months prior to that and taped a notice on the window of the boat. And I came home one weekend from over here, and the boat was sitting on the bottom. I mean, it was a nice boat, but it's clearly there's something broken in this chain of how to deal with these boats, because that was ridiculous that boat was allowed to sink right there, tied up at the county bulkhead, when they had DNR had a sign right in the window for a couple months. So I don't know what happened, but something's got to change in this system, because we just can't keep allowing these boats to to have these kind of conditions happen. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree with you. I mean, in the past, there has been a vehicle to get some of this done, but it's not an easy vehicle. What we appended onto a bill last year was a process where you would actually go out there and identify the boat, how long it's, and let them know it was going to be tagged. If it looked abandoned, somebody put a sticker on it, and they were going to actually fill that out and say, you need to contact DNR. And that was going to start that process. And if you didn't get in touch with them after a certain amount of time, that was all what we thought was cast in stone last year. And that would have fixed this. But you got a little bit of time. It can be a common complaint. It could be a real serious complaint. But typically, they didn't have to do much other than identify an abandoned boat. And typically, that comes in from a complaint from a constituent that it's sitting out there too long and they wanted it looked at. If it has a hull number, that's an easy fix, because you can identify that boat and the owner pretty quickly. If it doesn't have a hull number, that becomes a whole different set of rules. But I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I could tell more of the story, but I'll leave it at that. About why it sunk. The pipes that came in because of freezing weather broke inside the boat. Down she went.
Okay. Any additional stories? Okay. That concludes Bill House Bill 1260. We're going to jump to House Bill 1173.
Thank you.
Delegate Solomon, on behalf of Montgomery County Delegation, Montgomery County Speed Monitoring Systems, High-Risk Highways. If you have a panel or witnesses, please bring them up.
Yeah, we're just going to do sponsor, and they're here to take questions. So this is a bill the committee has handled before, and appreciate the ENT After Dark. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon here to present what was MC 1725, but is now 1173. And again, this is a bill was passed unanimously out of our delegation the last 2 years, overwhelmingly passed out of the House, got a little gummed up in the Senate, as things often do last year. This is a local speed camera bill. A top priority from our county's Department of Transportation, as well as our county police. And we've got folks from our county team here, again, to answer questions if anybody has them. Essentially what this bill does is Montgomery County is only limited to placing speed cameras on locations that are at 35 miles per hour or less. They are residential zones or they are school zones. So rather than sort of broadening this out, this was something that we worked out with the former subcommittee chair, much more elegant solution. Focusing the cameras on high injury network locations. So those are essentially the 3% of roadways in Montgomery County where 41% of the serious or fatal crashes occur. And so the county has worked with the State Highway Administration. They have an in-depth plan where they have identified about 80 different locations throughout the county that fall again into that category. We made a couple of tweaks to the bill after it went over to our Senate delegation, which also passed it unanimously. Our municipalities, there's two in particular that run their own speed camera program, Gaithersburg and Rockville. And so there was an additional amendment placed in the Senate to just clarify the language. It doesn't change the intent of the bill. And that was also passed unanimously out of delegation. So before you move this bill, I think that amendment just needs to be put onto the House version. But again, would urge a favorable report as you all have done before.
Great. Any questions for the sponsor or his panelists? Okay, that concludes Bill here on House Bill 1173. We'll go to House Bill 808. Delegate Terrassa on behalf of the Howard County Delegation, Columbia Association, lease requirements and governing documents.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Jen Terrassa. This is...
Delegate Terrassa, could you pull the mic closer to your mouth?
Yes, sir. And thank you for this opportunity to present House Bill 808, which is a Howard County delegation bill supported by both the Howard County House delegation and the Howard County Senate delegation. So here's the bottom line. CA is a big HOA, as you guys probably, some of you know. I know certain chairs of subcommittees know that, and which means that you pay an assessment to live on CA assessed property. That's whether you're residential or commercial. And if you're owned, you're most likely aware of that, and you're also sort of aware of the benefits that come with that. So if you live on residential property, whether you rent or own, you have the right to vote in CA elections, and you also get major discounts on all the facilities in Columbia. And if you are in a business, if you work for a business in Columbia, you can still get those discounts, although you can't vote. And so basically this bill requires leases to include information about that. I urge a favorable report.
Thank you. Any questions for the bill sponsor or the testifier? Great, thank you. That concludes Bill House Bill 808. We will go to House Bill 1230, the Majority Leader on behalf of the Montgomery and Prince George's delegations, WSSC System Development Charge Exemptions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, colleagues. House Bill 1230 is a bi-county bill from Montgomery and Prince George's. It involves system development charge exemptions, which is basically projects can get exempted from water and sewer hookup fees in these two counties if they are designated type of project. We had affordable housing, seniors housing, things like that. And we had a problem because we added child care facilities to the exemption 7 years ago, but none of them seemed to be getting the exemption. So we cleaned up the process a bit to try and fix that here. It's mostly involving just Montgomery County, but Prince George's added themselves into the reporting requirement in the bill, and it was unanimous.
Thank you. Any questions? This is much easier than your hearing tomorrow.
I know.
Leader.
Don't
Have a great evening. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1230. We'll turn to House Bill 1283. Delegate Davis on behalf of the Charles County delegation, off-highway recreational vehicles, regulation and enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, colleagues on Environment and Transportation. For the record, I am Delegate Deborah Davis from District 28 in Charles County. I'm here to present a local Charles County bill, an enabling bill that has passed unanimously through our Board of County Commissioners and unanimously through our entire delegation. It's entitled, it's HB 1283, Charles County Off-Highway Recreational Vehicles Regulation and Enforcement. You guys have heard this bill more than once before. Charles County would like to independently be able to regulate our ATV use. We have a serious problem in the county. You have the problem in your jurisdiction too, so I encourage you to do the same. I respectfully request a favorable report, and I want to thank my witnesses for being here all day. Do you want to go first?
Hello, I am Sergeant Gilroy, Charles County Sheriff's Office. I am the supervisor of community policing. The Sheriff's Office has received following calls for off-road vehicles in Charles County, which include ATVs and dirt bikes that are not registered or insured. From 2020 to 2025, we received 5,346 calls. In 2024 is 1,076 calls. Most calls for service are for reckless driving and destruction of property. These riders show no regard for their own safety or others. Being the supervisor of community policing, I attend multiple community meetings a month. In 2024, COPS officers have attended approximately 120 community meetings. Each meeting, and I mean every meeting, the issues brought up about how to stop ATVs and dirt bike riders on the road and their reckless behavior. The citizens are worried about the safety, the reckless driving on the highways and in the communities, and are annoyed by the constant noise and destruction of property in the communities. It has been a difficult task to apprehend these riders, but when we are able to catch them and the off-road vehicle is not stolen, the owner is able to get their mini bike right out within hours. The crime they are committing are normal traffic offenses and non-arrestable except for fleeing and eluding. I am not seeking an arrest or place a person in jail for riding recklessly. I am seeking to work with our commissioners to find a way to deter their behavior. If these people are caught and the significant financial repercussions are imposed or impound their off-road vehicle, I request a favorable report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. My name is Jerome Spencer. I'm the General Counsel of the Charles County Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Troy Berry and the Sheriff's Office in support of House Bill 1283. As Delegate Davis said, this is a recurrent issue in each of our communities. I would be remiss if I did not thank Delegate Vice Chair Boyce for her leadership in these bills in the past. We've worked with her before to try to get a statewide issue. But as Delegate Davis said, and as Sergeant Gilroy gave with those numbers, Charles County really can't wait anymore. The numbers speak for themselves. Our hope is that this enabling legislation will give our county commissioners an extra tool to use to work with the Sheriff's Office to deter the behavior. And fundamentally, that is our goal, to deter the behavior. It's our hope that if the county commissioners choose to authorize impoundment, word will get out. If you're in Charles County, we're going to take your bike, take your ATV, and hopefully you don't engage in the behavior. So we thank you for your support and consideration of this very important bill, and we ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. Any questions on House Bill 1283? Okay, that concludes the bill here on House Bill 1283. We'll turn to House Bill 1226. I will present this on behalf of Delegate Young, Baltimore City Stop Sign Monitoring Systems Authorization. This seems like a very important bill. And to discuss it, I'd like to bring up my witness, Christian McNeil from Baltimore City, to tell you why I think it's so important. And maybe whoever's sitting there will also want to tell me why it's so important. Go ahead, Mr. McNeil. Mr. McNeil, you got to unmute and explain the bill to tell you why I think it's so important.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee.
And maybe whoever's sitting there will also want to tell me why it's so important. Go ahead, Mr. McNeil.
Sure.
My jokes are not nearly as funny the second time. Can you shut off the YouTube? Shut off the YouTube of the hearing. Unmute. shut off the YouTube of the hearing and then
I think it's so
continue.
important.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. It's a
And maybe
pleasure.
whoever's sitting there also want to tell me why it's so. Go ahead, Mr. McNeil.
Sure.
My jokes are not nearly as funny the second time. Can you shut off the YouTube?
Yes.
Shut off the.
Gotcha. Can you hear me now?
Please go ahead.
All right, cool. HB 1226 authorizes stop sign monitoring systems in school zones to ensure drivers fully stop at intersections. Stop sign violations are a leading cause of accidents, with 1/3 of all crashes and over 40% of fatal crashes occurring at stop sign controlled intersections. In Baltimore, traffic violations near schools remain high, putting vulnerable pedestrians at risk. Automated enforcement ensures consistent and continuous monitoring, capturing violations, and issuing citations 24/7, particularly in high-risk areas. Baltimore's traffic enforcement program has demonstrated success, issuing over 322,000 red light camera citations between July 2023 and December 2024, with a 72% collection rate. Baltimore has already deployed photo enforcement at the top 10 high crash intersections using 3 years of crash data to support evidence-based traffic safety measures. HB 1226 is about saving lives, enhancing traffic safety, and protecting pedestrians. And for these reasons, I respectfully urge a favorable report on HB 1226. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we also now have Alana Jones from the mayor's office. Please go ahead.
Yes, this was good afternoon, but it is now evening. So good evening, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. My name is Ilana Jones. I'm Senior Advisor for State and Federal Affairs for Mayor Scott of Baltimore City. I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 1226. House Bill 1226 will authorize the Baltimore City Council to establish a stop sign monitoring program in school zones in Baltimore City. This tool will work in conjunction with the school zone speed enforcement program to ensure that not only are motorists traveling at safe rates of speed around our schools, but they are also stopping their vehicles when at an intersection that includes a stop sign. The city has been implementing, through its Complete Streets Manual, many significant improvements to support multimodal transportation. With additional pedestrians and cyclists on our roadways, ensuring motorists are coming to full and complete stops at stop signs is increasingly important. By allowing the city to enact local legislation to establish a stop sign monitoring program, we will be able to better protect our students as they travel to and from school each day. For the above stated reasons, the Baltimore City Administration respectfully requests a favorable report on House Bill 1226.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions on the bill? Okay, thank you all for being here. That concludes the bill hearing on 1226 and all the bill hearings for today. We will be back in 4 minutes at 7:40 for a voting session, so see you in 4 minutes. All right, welcome, everybody. It's black on there, but it is live on the internet, so we can go ahead with our voting session. Oh, there we are. We will start with House Bill 1155, Chair Stein.
Chair, the subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. As amended, this bill defines the term ecological restoration in state law. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 strikes language that would have required MDE to incorporate the definition in regulations. Move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, the amendments pass.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
Bill's moved and seconded. Discussion on House Bill 1155. All in favor of House Bill 1155 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, House Bill 1155 has passed. Delegate Young, we already did your bill. It was a great hearing. The city did a great job presenting for you. The city presented it for you. The city presented it for you. Delegate Young, we did your hearing. We're happy to have your amendment. If you can email it to us, that'd be great. Thank you. House Bill 480, Chair Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. This bill repeals requirements and restrictions related to additional local review that must occur before St. Mary's County is authorized to adopt, revise, or amend its county water and sewage plan for provisions in the county plan related to new or expanded public sewage systems and water supply systems. The amendment changes the sponsor to the St. Mary's County delegation. Move the amendment.
Amendments moved and seconded. Any questions on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed to the amendment? Amendment passes.
Move the bill as amended.
Those moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill? All right, all in favor of House Bill 480 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. I'm sure this next one will be just as quick. House Bill 49.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. This departmental bill alters existing requirements for the Maryland Department of the Environment relating to the adoption of regulations that establish building energy performance standards, or BEPS, for covered buildings. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Number 2 requires the building energy performance standards to require certain crediting, exclusions, and considerations, sets the alternative compliance payment rate for energy use intensity standards, allows waivers for making alternative compliance payments, requires MDE to provide training to help energy auditors understand the requirements under the standards and publish a list of energy auditors that have completed the training, specifies the annual reporting fee amount, and specifies the allowable use of alternative compliance pathway payments that are deposited into the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. Move the amendments.
Okay, I would like to separate out, if you're looking at the reprint, the top of page 3, there's an exempt from EUI targets, a covered building that is a hospital. I'd like to separate that out and consider the rest of the amendments moved and seconded. Any discussion on the rest of the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the rest of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, those amendments pass. On the remaining amendment, I would like to strike that language. I'm trying to just do this simply, guys, without a lot of difficult process. So basically what I'm proposing to do is we strike the language exempt from EUI targets a covered building that is a hospital, and instead remove hospitals from the list of covered buildings. This was an amendment that had previously been offered in the subcommittee, so I'm basically proposing to swap what the subcommittee adopted with another amendment they considered. I've moved that amendment. Any discussion? Chair Stein.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'll just say I support the amendment that excludes hospitals as covered buildings. Hospitals have care settings like intensive care units, surgical operating rooms, and emergency departments that need continuous and guaranteed access to power. And also they're subject to a fixed budgeting system in the state so that hospitals receive a set annual budget from the state. The model does not allocate funds for the additional infrastructure investments that would be needed to meet BEP standards. So I support the amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment put forward by the chair and supported by the Speaker Pro Tem, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Ruth. Delegate Lehman. On the bill or the amendment? Delegate Ruth and Delegate Lehman. Did we get it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person.
I don't record amendment.
Okay, well, just the video will always know. We got Delegate Ruth and Delegate Lehman. Thank you all. Chair Stein.
I would move the bill as amended.
Second.
Great. Any discussion on the bill? Delegate Otto.
Did we define that critical infrastructure, does that include wastewater treatment plants and potable water and?
Chair Stein.
Delegate, it is not expressly specified in the reprint of the bill. So it's a function of the definition. Critical infrastructure is defined according to state law. So it would be a function of whether that definition includes wastewater treatment plants.
And Doug, we'll work to get you an actual answer to that. I apologize that didn't get to you. It's been kind of a hectic day, so we'll get you the answer.
Believe me.
Because I know you actually want to know the answer, and so we'll get that answer for you. But I'm going to ask that we move forward with the bill. Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 30-second comment. I'm very concerned about this bill from the point of view that when the secretary sat here, she said it was going to be very expensive, and the bill is going to be very expensive. And my concern is if we are trying to attract business to Maryland that would be manufacturing in nature and large scale, this bill may prohibit or inhibit people from coming here. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Chair Stein?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just point out manufacturing is excluded as from the scope of the bill. And we tried to build in additional flexibilities to make it to make it less challenging to meet the standards under the bill.
And just as a reminder, Building Energy Performance Standards is current law under the Climate Solutions Now Act that the prior governor let become law without his signature. You might have voted against that. You might not have been here, but it's current law, and this revises the current law to build in some of that flexibility. Further discussion on the legislation? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 49 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Otto. Delegate Silverde. Delegate Naraki, Delegate Morgan, Delegate Baker. Delegate Foley, do you have a question?
I'd like to explain my votes.
Okay, so the practice in this committee, just as a reminder, I'm going to let you do it, but we explain our votes during discussion on the bill, not during voting. But if you want to go ahead and explain your vote briefly, this is the last.
Okay.
This is the last reminder. All right, everybody, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I voted for this bill. I am in favor of this bill. I do think that Delegate Ruth put in a very good amendment on hospitals, but I also understand that we need to get this bill passed so that we can have BEPS. And so I'm in favor of the bill. I'm in favor of implementing these building standards, and I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, and you're giving me a great opportunity to thank the subcommittee for a lot of hard work on this bill. It was many meetings, many questions, many of which strengthened the product we got. And even if everybody, including me, didn't get everything they wanted, I think the final product is a pretty good one. And hopefully our colleagues on the floor and the folks across the street agree with us. So thank you to the members of the subcommittee and to Kristen and to Chair Stein for the great work. And we will move on to House Bill 494, Chair Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. The bill primarily clarifies or expands the availability of service member and veteran recreational benefits and privileges to certain additional service members and veterans. Committee Amendment number 1 clarifies that veteran includes individuals eligible under federal law who serve in the Public Health Service or National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. 2 explicitly includes members of the Maryland National Guard as eligible for free entry into state parks. And 3, making certain active and former service members eligible for complimentary licenses or license exemptions for recreational non-title fishing licensings or hunting licensing. Move the amendments.
Second.
Amendments are moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Bill's amended, sir.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill? All in favor of House Bill 494, please, as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, do anyone wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Delegate Guyton. Delegate Lehman.
Oh, this is for
Delegate Holmes.
servicemen.
Yes.
Delegate Holmes, Delegate Guyton, Delegate Lehman, and Delegate Lewis.
Holmes, Guyton, Lehman, Lewis.
We good? All right, thank you. House Bill 1322, Chair Boyce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. As amended, the bill prohibits a person from operating a gasoline-powered vessel manufactured after July 31st, 2007 on the waters of the state unless the vessel has carbon monoxide warning labels affixed in conspicuous locations in the vicinity of both the transom rear and the helm steering area of the vessel. Subcommittee amendment establishes the manufacture date after which the bill applies and alters the bill title. Move the amendment.
Second.
Amendments moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendment. Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a fabulous bill, and I'm voting for it, but I'm just curious about why the amendment, why manufactured after July 31st, 2007? Was there a particular concern that addressed, or?
I think it's because that is at the time, and council can correct me, is when the regulation went into place to have the, I believe, the stickers on the boats.
More of an industry standard, but
Yes.
I think they don't want the people to be out there getting citations for this.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion on the amendments. Just to clarify, the amendments came from the sponsor, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right.
Delegate Terrassa, you okay? Okay. Okay. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, the amendments pass.
Bill is amended, sir.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of House Bill 1322 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, would anyone wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Delegate Boyce, Delegate Terrassa, Delegate Ruth, Delegate Allen, Delegate Baylor, Delegate Foley, Delegate Guyton, Delegate Lewis, and Delegate Healy.
Okay, I have Boyce, Peraza, Ruth, Allen, Baylor, Foley, Guyton, Lewis, Healy.
Everybody good? Okay, we'll move on to House Bill 717. Chair Boyce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee recommendation is favorable with amendments. As amended, the departmental bill establishes several provisions applicable to the Department of Natural Resources and one provision applicable to local governments relating to affiliated foundations, use of program open space, state land acquisition funding, management of newly acquired real property interests, and other provisions governing DNR's acquisition of real property interests, a land and property management program, and the use of program open space local funding for developmental projects. Committee amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 strikes provision that would have altered the state ethics law, altering provisions of the law relating to the use of program open space, local funding, and makes clarifying changes. Move the amendment.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill as amended, sir.
Bills moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 717 as amended? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition to House Bill 717? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Siliverte, Delegate Naraki, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Baker. Got it? Okay, thank you. We'll move to House Bill 84. We are secondary on this bill. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are indeed secondary. There's no subcommittee recommendation accordingly, but as amended, HB 84 requires actions to reduce or offset the vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions associated with major highway capacity expansion projects and major capital projects. The amendments alter standards and requirements for a major highway capacity expansion project subject to impact assessments and a corresponding multimodal transportation program, and require multimodal transportation programs to offset greenhouse gas emissions instead of vehicle miles traveled. Move the amendments.
Second.
Amendments have moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments. All through the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed to the amendments? Okay, the amendments pass.
Move the bill.
Okay, bills moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 84? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 84 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Siliverte, Delegate Naraki, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Baker. Because we're secondary, there's no pile-on, so we'll move on to House Bill 182. Chair Stewart.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. House Bill 182 received a favorable with amendment and recommendation from the subcommittee as amended. The bill creates an escalating penalty structure for automated enforcement penalties. Move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill.
Second. Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 182? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 182 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Silaberte, Delegate Naraki, and Delegate Baker, and Delegate Davis. Okay, this is a favorable amendment, so does anyone wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Lehman, Delegate Lewis, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Healy. We might have to do that again. So everyone put your hands back up. All right, we're going to do this again. Delegate Boyce, Delegate Terrassa, Delegate Ruth, Delegate Baylor, Delegate Morgan, Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Foley, Delegate Guyton, Delegate Lehman, Delegate Lewis, and Delegate Healy. Can someone read that back?
I have Baylor, Boyce, Foley, Guyton.
Everybody good? Okay, we'll move on to House Bill 225. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 225 received a straight favorable from the subcommittee. It's a departmental bill that simplifies and modifies the requirements and permissions associated with exceptional hauling permits issued by SHA to haul farm products. Move the bill.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 225? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Okay, bill passes, straight favorable, departmental, so no pile-on. Move on to House Bill 288. Chair Stewart.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. House Bill 288 is another departmental, straight favorable. HB 288 increases the maximum duration from 180 to 300 days of an MDTA emergency status determination. Move the bill.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 288? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Otto, Delegate Silaberte, Delegate Naraki, and Delegate Baker. Okay, it's a straight favorable, so no pile-on. House Bill 313, sponsor problem. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 313 also received a straight favorable. It reinstates and makes permanent a temporary requirement for the MVA to make available specially designed vintage reproduction registration plates. Move the bill.
Second. Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on this bill? Delegate Davis.
This is not the military.
No. Correct.
No, Delegate Davis, I am not the sponsor of the military vehicles bill.
We were at an event and someone said
He's just a fan.
That this was the bill. I just wanted to make it clear for the record.
It is absolutely not that bill.
Remember that?
I don't know if you've been to my district, but it is absolutely not that bill. Any further discussion on what is definitely not what Delegate Davis described? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 313, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Okay, bill passes, straight favorable, so no pile-on. House Bill 343, Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 343 received a favorable with amendment recommendation from the subcommittee. As amended, the bill authorizes a technician employed by or under contract with an agency rather than only a duly authorized law enforcement officer to sign a statement in a citation alleging a speed monitoring system violation and to swear or to affirm that a speed monitoring system violation occurred. Move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill.
Second.
House Bill 343 is moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 343 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Silaberte, Delegate Naraki, and Delegate Baker. Does anybody wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Okay, Okay, seeing no takers, we will move on to House Bill 348. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 348 is another straight favorable. It authorizes SHA to place and use speed monitoring systems on segments of highways identified as safety corridors. Move the bill.
Bill has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 348? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Siliberte, Delegate Naraki, and Delegate Baker. Okay. Bill passes, straight favorable, so no pile on. House Bill 349, Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 349 received a favorable with amendments recommendation from the subcommittee. As amended, it creates an escalating tier fine structure identical to the bill that we just passed. Move the amendments.
All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Or sorry. Yeah, okay. Anyone wish to record in opposition to amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill.
Second. Okay, bill's moving second. I apologize. Is anyone in discussion on the bill or the amendments? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 349, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Siliberte, Delegate Naraki, Delegate Baker. Okay, bill passes. Delegation bill, so we will not do a pile on. We'll move on to House Bill 450, Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 450, we're also secondary from appropriations. The recommendation is favorable. It requires the MTA to automatically renew the disability reduced fare program certification of an enrollee who is permanently disabled. Move favorable.
Second. Bill's moving second. Any discussion on House Bill 450? All in favor of this great bill, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to record in opposition? Okay, bill passes. It's straight favorable, so no pile on. We'll move on to House Bill 516. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 516 received a favorable with amendments recommendation from the subcommittee as amended. The bill generally prohibits an agency that implements and operates an automated enforcement program from accessing or using a recorded image or associated data without a warrant, subpoena, or court order unless the access or use is for an appropriate traffic enforcement purpose. Move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill.
Second. Bill's moving second. Any discussion on the bill? Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Stewart, where did the amendments leave us with some of the law enforcement concerns that were initially there in the committee testimony?
Chair Stewart?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for this.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you for the question. My understanding is that everyone's okay with these amendments. The amendments were basically from the law enforcement community. They narrowed the scope a little bit. Essentially, we discussed this last year. The question was really about, are we going to limit the use of this only for like exigent circumstances, which is what we discussed last year, or are we going to have a more broader definition for basically like any legitimate law enforcement purpose? So this bill outlines a process by which they would have to, if they have the data readily accessible within the agency, go through to essentially like outline what the purpose is and to use it for that purpose, but they wouldn't need a warrant or subpoena for that. So as amended, everyone feels good about this.
Okay. And just to really clarify, Delegate Naraki, without the amendments, the chiefs and sheriffs were opposed. With the amendments, they are neutral. That is their formal position.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for that. Appreciate it.
Any further discussion on the bill? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 516 as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. Does anyone wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Delegate Boyce, Delegate Holmes, Delegate Terrassa, Delegate Ruth, Delegate Long, Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Foley, Delegate Lehman, and Delegate Lewis.
Who's the last one?
Lewis? R. Lewis. Everybody good? Okay, we'll move on to House Bill 844. Chair Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 844, the motion from the subcommittee is straight favorable. This bill increases the salaries of certain public officials in Somerset County pursuant to constitutional requirements. Move the bill.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the bill? All in favor of House Bill 844, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. House Bill 967.
House Bill.
Chair Healy.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. House Bill 967 is a Somerset County Code of Public Laws. This is basically, the bill legalizes the 2025 edition of the Somerset County Code of Public Laws. Move the bill.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 967? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. We'll move on to House Bill 1064. Chair Healy.
Okay, Bill 1064 is a bi-county bill affecting both the Montgomery County Planning Board and the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission open meetings, live streaming requirements. The amendments are the bill as amended. The bill exempts the Montgomery County Planning Board and the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission from requirement to stream live video or teleconference audio at project site visits or an educational field tour if no organizational business is conducted. Move the amendments.
Amendments moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill as amended.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 1064? All in favor of House Bill 1064 as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. We'll move on to House Bill 1168. Chair Healy.
House Bill 1168 is another bi-county bill. This is, the motion is favorable with amendments as amended. The bill authorizes a minimum or ready-to-serve charge by the WSSC to include an infrastructure investment component and authorizes WSSC to establish customer classes within any meter size rather than requiring the minimum or ready-to-serve charge to be based on the size of the meter on the water connection leading to the property. Move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Move those amendments. Second.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on House Bill 1168 is amended? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. We move on to House Bill 1443. Chair Healy.
1443, okay. This one is a little bit more interesting. Okay, we had some discussion on this bill. This bill is local government hiring and promotion preferences for veterans and spouses of service members and veterans. As amended, this bill authorizes counties and municipalities to grant hiring and promotional preferences to an eligible veteran, the spouse of an eligible veteran who has a service-connected disability, the spouse of an eligible service member, or the surviving spouse of a deceased eligible veteran. Any such preference, if awarded, does not violate any state or local equal employment opportunity law. The bill further authorizes counties or municipalities that use selection tests to hire or promote employees to award 10 credit points on the test or the equivalent to those same individuals. Those are the amendments, so I move the amendments.
Amendments have been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendments to the bill?
I would like to ask Ben to clarify. There was one amendment that needed more further clarification.
Okay.
So
Council?
before we vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair Healy. As in the subcommittee meeting earlier today, we were talking about a concern that, well, there was one question about whether the bill is needed. The proponents for the bill stated that they were concerned about receiving legal challenges for preferences, so this was a way to safeguard that. Another question was raised in subcommittee after looking at the bill, whether one provision that is required, so if an employer is a county or municipal corporation and they choose to grant a preference, again, which is just enabling if the county or municipality chooses to grant a preference, then the county or municipal corporation shall adopt a local law. There was concern that that if they're choosing to give a preference, they must adopt a local law, that might be that might nullify or abrogate an existing local preference. To that end, it was noted that if there was a local law in effect, then that would suffice to serve as an adopted local law. I'm unaware of a local jurisdiction where there is a preference for that isn't in a local ordinance, but that was raised by the subcommittee as a concern that it could nullify an existing policy or directive. So the subcommittee was, I think, inclined to just move forward with going just to keep the language as is, but subject to further investigation.
Great, we have a question from Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, Ben, what about a county that does not have legislative abilities? They're a commissioned form of government or code home rule.
Thank you for the question, Delegate Long. The requirement is that if the county is choosing to grant a preference, then they have to adopt a local law. So that might be a challenge in that circumstance. The sponsor of the bill, after speaking with them following subcommittee, said they were open to changing that to a may, so that the municipal corporation or county may adopt a local law that provides for the hiring and promotion preference. There's just a concern, perhaps, if you're granting preference without something on the books or in law, but maybe you could say a local law or ordinance or other directive. Maybe that's like still a governmental document.
I don't mean to be nitpicky. I just think that would be very challenging because most of these jurisdictions that are commissioned forms of government have to come to us anyways. So I don't know if we should look at that before we just pass this out.
Chair Healy.
I'd like to address that because I think that the nature of this bill is it's enabling for those counties. And so under the current, they could come to us, any of the commissioner counties could come to us with a proposal, and we would still have to adopt a law before they could do it. It would be in the normal course of the way they do business to adopt a law. So they would ask the delegation to put in a bill, and then we would consider it. And it would be, that's the way the commissioner counties work.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Delegate Terraza.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to confirm, so we're not changing it to may, because I share the concern about like if there's already existing preference, or if you have difficulty because you're a commissioner county and you have to come back. So I don't know, I thought may fix that, but I'm okay either way.
You're okay either way? Is that what you're saying?
I'm okay either way. I just worried that a little bit that it might.
I think if I could respond, Mr. Chair, I think if we leave it the way it is, it takes care of the thing, because if there's an existing program that was not adopted through passage of a local law, then they would have to pass a local law. But if they did this originally by creating a law, then it wouldn't be necessary for them to do it.
Right, but then if that's the case, then if you're saying that if they have a preference but it's not in their local law, then they'd have to pass a local law. That means that the existing preference is not allowed to continue.
Until they pass a local law, yes.
Is there any is there any concern about that?
It could go either, I'm sorry. The Maryland Municipal League said that they're happy either way. So, okay, I would like to.
So I'm just going to suggest, if it's all right, Chair Healy, let's just hold this. We'll be voting again Thursday.
Okay.
Some people obviously have questions. Maybe there's a clarifying amendment.
Okay.
So we'll just hold this till Thursday, the voting session. I will text the sponsor so he's aware of what's going on. And if it's all right with you, we can move on to House Bill 1228. Chair Healy.
Thank you very much. House Bill 1228 is a Montgomery County bill. It's the recommendation is favorable with amendments. As amended, the bill requires the Department of Commerce, in coordination with specified Montgomery County entities, to study economic development and aspects of the economy of the Montgomery County Agricultural Reserve. The first amendment is technical. The second one requires the department to conduct a study in coordination with the County Planning Board and the Montgomery County Office of Agricultural Services, the University of Maryland Extension's Montgomery County, and visit Montgomery County. It requires the study to make a number of assessments and recommendations related to the agricultural reserve. Move the amendments.
Amendments moved and seconded. Discussion of the amendments. All for the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendments? Okay, amendments pass.
Bills amended.
Bills moved and seconded. House Bill 1228 as amended. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. We will turn to House Bill 80. Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 80 was recommended favorable with amendments by the subcommittee. By way of just introductory remarks, I'd like to thank the subcommittee and committee counsel for their hard work on this bill. As amended, House Bill 80, a departmental bill, makes various changes to the state's regulatory framework governing transit-oriented development, or TOD. Broadly, the bill does three things. First, it prohibits a legislative body or other local agency with land use authority from imposing a minimum off-street parking requirement on a residential or mixed-use development located within 0.25 miles of a rail station that receives specific hourly service. Second, the bill requires local land use regulations to allow mixed-use development on land designated for residential use or appropriate commercial use for mixed-use development within 0.5 miles of a rail station that receives specific hourly service. And third, for state-owned land in use for a transportation purpose contiguous to a rail transit station that receives specific hourly service, prohibits a legislative body or other local agency with land use authority from imposing limitations or restrictions on land use classification, height, or setback, or any similar requirements if the land is subject to a TOD developmental plan approved by MDOT and the local jurisdiction. The committee amendments alter the limitations on local land use authority, strike alterations to the TOD capital grant and revolving loan fund, and strike authorization to establish TOD corridor funds. Move the amendments.
Amendments moved and seconded. Discussion of amendments. Delegate Guyton.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Subcommittee Chair. Could you go into more detail about amendment number 1 that you just mentioned?
Amendment number 1, which alters the limitations on local land use authority. I think it's worth underscoring that the requirements in the amended bill shouldn't be construed to alter local land use authority governing environmental or natural resources concerns, public health and safety considerations, or adequate public facility ordinances.
So just to be clear, because this is something that's very important to my district, so I want to make sure I understand what we're doing before I vote for or against this. So I appreciate your patience. Just to be clear, so this bill was amended so that if an entity decides that there are health, safety concerns, or there are problems with adequate public facilities, then they could step in if there were serious concerns and do something about that?
If that entity has land use authority, yes. Under the amended bill, if there are environmental or natural resources concerns, public health and safety considerations, or adequate public facilities ordinances, local land use authority would govern.
All right. Thank you very much for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Another question from a comment from Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and echo Delegate Guyton. Thank you, Chair Lewis, for your explanation of the amendments. And I think I'm pretty clear on what the amendments do. Couple questions, though. Let's see, page 4, subsection E. It says language would change to say a legislative body may not preclude mixed-use development. Now it says the local jurisdiction zoning regulations shall allow mixed-use development on land, et cetera. So is that technically, what is, I guess, is this a broader provision on, with respect to what a county zoning regulations would allow.
I want to understand your question. Are you asking if this bill expands a county's authority?
Well, no, I guess compared to the original language, but I guess I think I could understand that it's pretty much the same, in saying that zoning regulations shall allow mixed-use development as opposed to saying that a legislative body may not preclude mixed-use development. So I guess it's pretty much the same in terms of its intent.
I think, I like to think of it this way. You know, when you're driving a car, if you have a car and you're driving it, there's an accelerator and there's a brake.
Right.
This is neither of those. It's like keeping the car in neutral. If the local authority, if the entity with local land use authority wants to prohibit mixed-use development under the conditions that have been defined in the bill, that is not necessarily going to be okay.
Okay.
The intent of the bill is to create conditions where transit-oriented development is feasible, acceptable, and serves the needs of the state with regard to housing, moving people, and stimulating our economy. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if you wanted to.
Yeah, just
I didn't mean to
in
interrupt.
case it helps, I think the purpose of the change was to make clear that the sort of Euclidean zoning should allow mixed use if it meets these other qualifications, residential use or appropriate commercial use, so not next to a radioactive dump, so that they would change the underlying zoning. As the bill came in, I think there was some concern that it was sort of overly broad, and this makes more clear that the sort of zoning code should say mixed-use development permitted here if it meets these other qualifications. I think that was the purpose of the change.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess my other question is, could you explain the rationale for referring to a rail transit station that receives at least hourly service on average between 8 a.m. until 6 p.m.? What is that meant to include and exclude?
Well, it's meant to highlight the rationale for selecting certain sites for TOD preference. It doesn't make sense to further TOD at a rail station that has no shelter, where you have to wave it down with a little handkerchief to make the train stop. It really focuses on those, which is a thing I'm told happens in places in Maryland, but it rather focuses on those areas that can benefit the most, that are primed, ready for the investment that will generate the most benefit.
Sure.
So, in fact, the bill really highlights those rail stations that are on the rail corridor, the MARC rail corridor from DC to Baltimore City, and not beyond Baltimore City. It highlights the subway, metro, and MARC station stops in the DC suburbs. So it just creates a more rational understanding of what's TOD appropriate.
Okay, I think I understand, Mr. Chair. Just one last question. So I guess what you're saying is that if it was a lightly traveled rail station that didn't get too many trains during
Next
the day.
to a nuclear waste dump?
Right.
Yeah, that would not make sense.
That would not qualify. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Just to be specific, just to be specific in our specificity, this would cover, I'll just use the Baltimore area, the Brunswick line, the Penn line of the MARC rail, but only between DC and Baltimore, because that's what meets the service hours. It doesn't, when it goes beyond that, the service hours aren't met. It covers the Baltimore area light rail and the Baltimore subway. Down my way or Delegate Healy's way, it covers WMATA. In the future, it will cover the Purple Line. So those are the specific corridors that it covers.
It does not cover the Camden line?
It does not cover the Camden line, it does not cover the Brunswick line, and it does not cover the Penn line once it goes sort of north of the city of Baltimore. Delegate Guyton?
Thank you. I am so sorry, because I thought I was absolutely okay and understood our conversation, and then Delegate Stein's conversation, I thought I heard something contradictory there. So I'm just going to ask you one more time just to explain the First Amendment one more time for me.
So the first committee amendment alters the limitations on local land use authority, that one?
The first
There were
amendment
3 amendments.
that mentioned public health, safety, that there were some.
Chair Lewis, do you mind if I just jump in?
Yeah, please.
So, Delegate Guyton, zoning regulation refers to the Euclidean zoning under the land. Now, an APFO, an adequate public facility ordinance, can still address something that is trying to be built subject to that zoning. If there is a health and safety concern, that can still be addressed with something being built in that zoning.
Thank you.
So the
That's all
zoning
I needed to know for sure.
The zoning has to authorize a mixed-use development, but it doesn't make it mandatory if
Thank
some of these other things sort of stop it from happening.
Right. I just would like to have that clearly, on the record and in my head. Thank you so much.
Sorry for any confusion that I probably caused. Delegate Healy?
Okay, back to the hourly train stations. And now I understand that you're talking about Baltimore region and the Purple Line, but I don't know if this is even something that would happen, but I've lived through times when they've cut back on hours, and would that put them out of line with this before they even do anything?
Yes, if the service is cut that way, and it no longer qualified, it would no longer qualify under this bill.
And would that continue on, or is it just at the beginning of is this a one-time thing, or is this an ongoing thing?
It's a little bit of both. It kind of depends on what provision you're looking at, but certainly, so for example, not every transit-oriented development project will happen right away. So if they come 8 years from now, and I'm long gone, so service has been cut on WMATA, right, and it no longer meets the hourly requirement, then they will not be able to sort of benefit from this bill when they're trying to move forward with their development.
I got it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed to the amendments. Okay, amendments pass.
Move the bill as amended.
Bill's moved and second. Any discussion on House Bill 80 as amended? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. And it should be recorded in opposition to this thing that doesn't have any stations on the Eastern Shore. Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Otto, Delegate Naraki, Delegate Morgan, and Delegate Baker. Okay, it's a departmental, so no pile on. We'll go to our last bill, House Bill 453, Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 453 was recommended favorable with amendments by the subcommittee. As amended, this bill enables Anne Arundel County to grant additional exemptions from and credits against development impact fees as specified. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies that the county may grant exemptions from or credits against impact fees or construction involving moderately priced dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, workforce housing, and projects where the developer conveys land or provides infrastructure to the county. There's no fiscal impact. Move the amendments.
Amendments are moved and seconded. Discussion of the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed to the amendments. Okay, amendments pass.
Move the amended bill.
Bill's moved and seconded. Any discussion on HB 453 as amended? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And which should be recorded in opposition? Okay, bill passes. That concludes our voting session. Before we go to subcommittee announcements, a reminder, we do have some bill hearings tomorrow. I think they'll go relatively quickly. They're mostly sponsor only because they were bills we took out of rules, which we limit to sponsor only. Obviously, we'll be flexible around subcommittees, so keep an eye on an ear out for floor announcements and emails and so forth. But for this evening, subcommittee announcements, Chair Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will meet in 5 minutes, and we'll meet in 5 minutes, and we will be 30 minutes. So don't ask a lot of questions. Thanks.
Wow, she says what I'm always thinking. Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motor Vehicle and Transportation will meet at 9 over Zoom. We'll also be just going at rapid pace. We're also going to meet tomorrow and Thursday, but 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's 9 p.m., everybody. All right, thank you all I'm sorry, Chair Lewis.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Just to reiterate, land use has been canceled for this evening, but we will be meeting again later this week, so watch your emails and texts. Thank you.
Chair Stein.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And Environment met this morning at 8 a.m., so we're done for the day, but we will be meeting again tomorrow and Thursday. Well, let's see. Tomorrow, we say 4 o'clock, so after bill hearings, and then Thursday, have it on the calendar as 3.
I'll just say, let's be flexible. We have no idea what time they're going to be meeting on Thursday. Chair Holmes.
Housing and real property tomorrow at 5. Don't know yet what time for Thursday.
Delegate Guyton, did you have a question? Delegate Guyton, you're good? All right, thank you all.